Let's do this. September the 15th. Happy Sunday. Grab a coffee. What goes better together than coffee and Sunday? Maybe tea and Sunday, but okay, you can grab a tea. And let's talk a realistic utopia for a fair society. From the original position was extracted two overarching principles, things that need to be fulfilled so that we can speak about a fair society. They are justice, as it relates to freedoms, and equality. Big surprise, I know. Additional to that, there's also the principle of intergenerational justice and sustainability that needs to be heeded. When we go deeper into the principle of justice, we see that it again contains two principles. I presented them in full in Rawls words with flourishes and flowers yesterday in my post then. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, they're just like 124 words or something like that, go back and read them now. Then come back here for the discussion of what Rawls considered to be truly basic liberties. They are divided into three groups according to Rawls: personal, political, and procedural. Personal liberties include the freedom of conscience, thought, and expression, the freedom of association and all rights that are needed to ensure our individual freedom and bodily integrity, including the freedom from violence, the freedom of movement, free choice of occupation, the right to a private family life, the freedom of choice in questions of sexuality and reproduction, and the right to own personal property. We will get deeper into some of those. I'm especially giddy to talk about property, but also the flip side of liberties, namely responsibilities. You don't get liberties without responsibilities, because this is a contract and everyone has to do something and give up something to get something more. But for now, I just list Rawls' ideas as a starting point for any discussion. So, political liberties are next up. They are, according to Rawls, all the rights and freedoms that underpin the democratic process, including the right to vote and to stand for office, the freedom of political speech and association, the right to scrutinize and criticize your government, the right to form political parties and campaign groups, the right to create a political system as long as in which people have substantively equal opportunities to exercise those rights and to influence collective decision-making. Yes, you can change. We can all change the basis on which we are working together, on which we are creating one world in our minds, align our worlds in our mind. But you can do it only in a fair society as long as everyone has a say, an equal say in the process of decision making. Oh, how do I itch to compare this list to the three basic freedoms our ancestors had. But for now, it's Rawls speaking, and for him, the personal and political liberties established the core substantive freedoms protected by the basic liberties principle, what is the first of the two justice principles. Yes, you should go back read them if you haven't done so yet. Together, the personal and political liberties must be seen as the liberal and democratic aspect of liberal democracy. Procedural liberties, then again, are the rights and freedoms associated with the rule of law. This very important thing most people are not thinking about. To abide by the procedural liberties, the state should act in accordance only with laws that have been approved through a legitimate political process. No gentlemen's agreements. No, oh, we just think everyone will act like they should. No, rules and laws that have gone through a legitimate political process. Everyone should be subject to the same laws, of course, which should be administered in a regular and impartial manner. So no more Trump gets more rights in a court than any other accused person. These procedural liberties are a precondition for enjoying all the other personal and political liberties. Without the rule of law, after all, democracy would be meaningless, since the state could act with impunity, and none of our personal liberties would be secure. And remember that when you hear Trump talk and promise you the moon from the heavens. He said he wants to be an autocrat. He doesn't want to be held responsible for anything he ever said before or after, ever again. So he doesn't want the rule of law to work. And so where does it leave you? It will leave you with no safety in your personal liberties. Anyway, this was Rawls. I don't have a space left in this post to get into a detailed discussion of different aspects like what exactly did it mean for Rawls for a liberty to be basic? How did he get all these things together? It has to wait for another day. Let me end, therefore, with a general observation. Rawls' list of basic liberties is compiled with implicit understanding that democracy, as we practice it today, is the fundament of any fair society. It's a given that it will be an integral part of a dataset that all members of a society will use as a hypothesis to generate their model of a world around, as is the division of a world into states. In principle, I don't disagree. A certain degree of alignment of the results of the individual world generation process must happen before any meaningful cooperation is possible. Voluntarily, people will only accept to use the entirety of a certain dataset in their individual word generation process that happens in their minds and can therefore not be controlled. So they will only use what they agree with. And they only agree with any dataset if they are better off when cooperating, when they are more able to engage in random searches, have truly new experiences and gain truly new knowledge in the group, then without it, or maybe in another group that uses another dataset to align their word generation processes. The bigger the group, the less agreement we will be able to reach. A point will come where any alignment reached with what the group can agree on will not be enough to meaningfully cooperate. At that point, you either fall back on violence or the threat thereof to get everyone in line with what some believe should be the dataset used by all. That's our situation right now, basically. But it should be our goal to cut violence in any shape or form out of our system of organizing, so a general agreement of a smaller group will always be preferable. What leaves us with something we might want to call states, in which we practice the will of the people. But neither the state nor the democracy, the will of the people, that results are what we have in mind right now. Because what we have in mind right now is based on a certain degree of violence and the threat thereof. That's how a state is defined. Sovereignty means that the state or whoever is sovereign has the monopoly on violence or the threat thereof. So it's already baked into the system right now. And we don't want that anymore. Because where violence is baked in the system already, more violence grows. So we need a true agreement, a true democracy in a group where one of the aspects must be that everyone can leave a group, and that is only possible and realistic when this person can assume and be sure of that another group will take them in. You can't leave a place without knowing where you will be welcomed, realistically. You can leave it with hope that something is, but hope is not a guarantee. And so hope is not something that works in a system where you are bound to use the same data set because there is violence baked in, like everyone else, and but you disagree, and your world generation process delivers something completely different, and you want to leave because you want to find a group of people who do the same thing in their world generation process to some degree. But you don't know if this group of people will be happy and will be ready and will be guaranteed to take you in. Even though it would be best for the group, but that's a discussion for another day. Anyway, the members of a society must define the terms of state and democracy for themselves. It's open to their contract. Yes, there will be a fair society will always be the will of the people, of all the people equally. And the group will always be smaller than all people in the world. Any group that can cooperate and establish goals for themselves. But it's not the state and the democracy we define right now, to the point that we define democracy very differently in even the Western states that practice democracy. What is on your mind after reading Rawls' list and my additions and hearing my additions? Is anything missing you considered as basic? Did you notice that the list includes only a very limited set of economic freedoms? Talk to me. You can hear me again tonight while I prep dinner. Tonight it will be breakfast for dinner, so there will be pancakes, but the German version of pancakes. And if that's not your thing, if you don't like TikTok lives, then you can hear me again tomorrow in another post. Until then, bye.